Welcome back, friends and neighbors. This is Professor Bruce Hartpence coming to you live from the networking labs at RIT with the solution to Packet of the Week number 20. So if you are looking back or you tried Packet of the Week number 20, you may recall that this is what the packet looked like. Kind of small, but there are a couple of unique characteristics that will help us identify what this guy is. But without further ado, here is the solution. Alright, so again, we're going to just sort of parse through this frame and try and figure out what it is. So the first thing up that I want to take note of are the MAC addresses. So we take a look here. Something unique about this is that the destination MAC address is a multicast. And we know that because the very first byte in this particular frame is 01. Now for IP version 4, that means we're looking at a multicast frame. And if you take a look at the rest of this MAC address, you may have noticed that this particular one is reserved for the spanning tree protocol. And we see that the last 3 bytes of this particular MAC address are filled in with all zeros. And the source MAC address is the originator of this particular BPDU. And then lastly, the last 2 bytes, 0026, and the header here indicate that this is a value smaller than 1500, and so that means that we're looking at an 802.3 frame, which is what we use to encapsulate spanning tree. The red arrow there indicates the destination service access points and the source service access points in the 802.2 header, and these also point to spanning tree. So let's take a look at the things that are specific to spanning tree itself. Now I've indicated the 4 main fields of spanning tree, and we'll go through those, but the beginning of the spanning tree header there begins with the red arrow or all those zeros, and those are the flags fields, the versions, kind of tells us what's going on here. The last part of that entry or beginning part of the frame 01 indicates that this is a topology change. Now the first rectangle there is the root ID. Now remember that this starts with the priority and then is followed by a MAC address. And this priority is 8002, which means 32770, which tells us also that we're starting from VLAN 2 here. And we can see the MAC address of the root bridge. The next field, the 4 bytes of zeros there, that is the root path cost or the cost back to the root. These are all zeros, which tells us that this in fact came from the root bridge. The transmit bridge field is the third field here, and we can see that this actually matches up with the root ID, and so this is another indicator that this came from the root bridge. But the third field is called the bridge ID or the transmit bridge ID. The last field here in our BPDU 8006 is a port ID. Now this is a port priority, a 1-byte port priority, 80128 in base 10 numbers, and then 06, which is the port number that this came from. So this tells us what port I was sitting on when I actually caught this particular BPDU. Now the interesting thing about it is that if you go back and take a look at the MAC address, the source MAC address here, the last octet is 86, which is an indication also that this came from port 6. Well, the rest of it is fields that we don't normally concern ourselves with in spanning tree, along with a little bit of padding. So that does it. If you figured that out, kudos to you. Congratulations. And that'll do it for Packet of the Week number 20 solution. Now, just for fun, and because I'm all about fun, I've included the actual frame that I use for this particular Packet of the Week. And as you wander down through there, you can start to see where the 4 fields appear, you know, the ones that are part of the comparison algorithm, the root ID, the root path cost, the bridge ID, transmit bridge ID, and the port identifier. Wireshark also splits out what VLAN you were actually using because we have that base priority of 32768 for the bridges. But there you have it. Now at the bottom part there are the timer values, and we're going to talk about that in, let me see, Spanning Tree Part 3, and that's a different video in the series. Well, thanks again for listening. Thanks again for stopping by. You remember that you can go to brucehartpence.com, take a look at all the resources pages out there. In the chapters of the book, I'm also adding the capture files that I used for the activities and for the discussion, so you can actually download some PCAPs there, along with the configs and links to the videos. Remember that we're working through the packet guide to routing and switching in terms of the educational videos, so take a look and stop by there. Well, I appreciate it again, and may your packets always reach their destination.